For hundreds of years, the knowledge of China's capital, Beijing, was extremely scarce outside China, but also inside the Middle Kingdom itself. Today, we will explore 4 maps of Beijing that all have the one thing in common, that they changed the whole idea of the city when they came out. My name is Lars Thom, and this is Beijing Postcards. Some of the very first Chinese map drawings to reach outside of China came from the Dutch Neuhof mission in the 1650s. But when you look at the map drawings Neuhof's mission produced, it becomes quite clear that they relied on just as much imagination as they did factual information. The connections that the mission had was impressive. Neuhof was in fact able to meet the emperor deep inside the Forbidden City at the Baohedian, something that only a couple of years later would be impossible to foreign visitors. Maybe this unique access is why for hundreds of years these primitive renditions was seen as the most accurate descriptions of the Chinese capital. The German map collector René Schmidt, he has asked us to prepare his amazing collection of original maps of Beijing for sale. And in his collection, we find this map. It is a map made by a monk called Father Bichurin. The story of Father Bichurin is an almost unbelievable yet incredible story. When Father Bichurin arrived in Beijing, he was thoroughly devoted to his studies, but not so much to God. Under Father Bichurin's management, 2 people literally died of drink inside of the Russian mission, and women folk were observed close to the compound. And that was why Bichurin was called back to Russia in disgrace. The Orthodox mission wanted him punished, but the Tsar interfered and demanded that Bichurin should publish his unique knowledge of China, because Father Bichurin had brought back 8,000 kilos of material about China. So the Bichurin map was first printed in 1829 at a time where Father Hyacinth was sitting in house arrest at a monastery. Interestingly enough, the mission where Father Hyacinth served is today the location of the Russian embassy to China. In a Chinese context, Beijing maps does not really become publicly available to the year 1900. In this year, the 8 allied nations, they occupy Beijing. And with the emperor out of the door, publishing houses and printing mills will now pop up like mushrooms. And in a place like this one I'm standing next to here, you would now have maps published and updated on an almost monthly basis. These 2 maps are essentially the same map. And if we look closely on one of them, just above the old legation quarter, we can find a good example of how the maps were constantly updated. Because here we find a blank spot. And this is where the Beijing Hotel would be built in 1921 and become the highest building of Republican Beijing. In many ways, mass tourism did not start in China till the Cultural Revolution. Because during this time, all of a sudden, the Red Guards, they could ride the trains of China for free. And in the middle of this movement was Beijing, the revolutionary capital. And in order to accommodate this new identity of Beijing, you would change all of the street names into revolutionary ones. Wangfujing became the People's Road, and Dongjiang-Mingxiang, the old main road in the legation quarter, became Fight Imperialism Road. But this created a problem even to the Red Guards themselves, because when they came in to the city, they simply could not find their way. So after a couple of months, you would change the revolutionary street names back to their original names. But you did leave one of them, and that is the Wussidajie, the 4th of May Street, that still exists to this day with its cultural revolutionary name just outside of the Forbidden City. Keep following us for more Beijing history, and if you are in Beijing, come visit our store.